Hello and welcome to another Cheeky Scientist radio podcast. I'm Isaiah Henkel, your host, and today we will be talking with Ananda Ghosh on careers in technology transfer. As always, if you want to learn more about transitioning into industry, go to phdsgethired.com, enter your name and email address, and we'll send you free information on how to access our job search blueprint, specifically for PhDs, as well as how to access our 4,000 plus member private PhD only job referral network. So again, just go to phdsgethired.com. If you want our podcasts as well as our blog articles sent to you by email every week for free, just go to cheekyscientist.com and sign up there on the homepage. And finally, if you want to listen to all of our podcasts, you can find us on iTunes just by searching Cheeky Scientist Radio, and you can subscribe to us there on iTunes so you won't miss any of our new podcasts. So again, today we will be talking with Ananda Ghosh on careers in technology transfer, starting now. Hello, Ananda.
Hi.
Good to see you. Ananda did his PhD at the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, India, and came to the United States to pursue his postdoctoral fellowship. He did a short postdoc at Yale, probably heard of the school, Yale, and then moved to Yale Cornell Medical College. At the end of his fellowship, he got interested in technology commercialization through an internship opportunity at the Center for Technology Licensing, which is the tech transfer office at Cornell, right?
Right.
And following that, he joined Columbia Technology Venture as a project coordinator for a couple of months, after which he fully transitioned as a technology marketing associate at the NYU Office of Industrial Liaison.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Fantastic. From there, he's also now a USPTO registered patent agent. So he has a lot of knowledge in filing patents. During his transition, he founded an online networking and support group called, for STEM PhDs, called PhD Career Support Group, which is now a 503c nonprofit organization with 9,000 plus members spanning across the world. We need to collaborate more. I've seen the growth. It's been fantastic. I mean, it's great. So you can check that out again. It's PhD Career Support Group. He also co-founded a popular blog series called PhDs, for PhDs called Club Sci-Ri, right?
Sci-Ri. Yeah.
Sci-Ri. Yeah. So that's SCIWRI.club if you want to go visit it. In his spare time, he manages a New York-based South Asian music band called Iman.
Perfect. The pronunciation.
Yeah, first of all, I need to find a YouTube video of this to show. And spends his time either jamming or performing in and around New York. I have got to see this. So, Ananda, thank you for coming again. Please, for all of you on, please, Ananda, for being with us. So, the first question I always like to ask is, what did you do for your transition? How did it look like? And maybe we can start even before that. Why did you want to transition outside of the traditional professor career track, especially after doing a postdoc?
Yeah, right. I mean, Isa, you had interviewed me just after the transition, and probably I will just take that same, take it from there. That, back in 2015, I was like really getting frustrated about, the way the career was going. Already 6 years of PhDs, it was nearly 5.5 years of postdoc. And I was like really, getting that stress. And luckily, I bumped into one of your blogs, one evening, and I distinctly remember that evening, and I was like, this is a blog which looks like, my life being taught, being discussed here. And I realized that, there are other people who are also going through that same stress, that same frustration, which, that blog was talking about. And I remember I just sent my email ID to, to follow the association at that time. And so those blogs started, and a lot of things happened during that time. I mean, I was reading those blogs. I remember interacting with you on Twitter because you were very active on Twitter. At the same time, I was also networking. I slowly started networking in New York, met a couple of friends who were, suggesting that, and I remember, that, what do you want to do? And I was like, I have no idea of what I want to do. And that was like, much before I joined Cheeky. And so, during those time, when I was talking to a lot of people, reading your blogs, a couple of things happened, and then I got to know about this career, which is like, IP, patent agent, and tech transfer. Actually, I first came to know about patent agent, the USPTO based exam, and then people said that, oh, PhDs can easily transition to this kind of roles because the law firms actually hire PhDs, but you have to take this exam. And so that's where I started. And I was like, and by that time I remember February 2015, when all those things happened, I was like, more or less in within very short period of time I decided, no, nothing doing. I don't want to stay in academia anymore, and I really want to move right now. The other thing which was actually very frightening at that time was, I was seeing a lot of these postdocs who are like, who were well past 10 years of postdoc, and they were very contented with their life. And I told myself that, man, I don't want to be in that position. Just to make sure, this webinar is between only the associate, right? Okay. And I was really, I was feeling for them. Not that, it was not out of apathy, but I was feeling for them. And I was thinking that, man, I will be really very depressed if I am staying in the same lab another 10 years or another 5 years. And so I was like, this is the time I need to move. At the same time, I'm an international PhD student, so I started working on my green card. So I had to renegotiate with my PI, and that's a different sort of discussion. We can discuss later, because I think there are some visa questions later on. So I had to renegotiate and tell that, whether Cornell will sponsor me. Now Cornell has this weird sponsorship where they will just write a letter, but they won't sponsor for the green card as such. So I had to pay for my own lawyer. But it was a big help at that time, and the negotiation worked at that time. And that time I didn't know what negotiation was. I was just saying that, oh, look, if the project needs to be continued, I need to stay in this country, and I need that visa.
So let me just jump in real quick. So the reason why was you wanted, you still wanted to stay close to science, right? And we've heard this over again, but you wanted to pursue another path where you saw more possibilities, more opportunities, more connections. Something different than what you were seeing in academia, which seemed to become a bit limited, almost.
Exactly. And I was, when I was networking, I was seeing a lot of people who were very bright outside academia. They were more open. And there was like very stark difference. And, some of those things you have been telling us over and over again. So I don't want to, restate those things. But it was very stark. And I said that, oh, but they are also, they are also pretty smart, and they have a good life. And, I need to move or even at least check out what kind of work they do. So.
Yeah, and I think curiosity is always the first step, right? So realizing, oh, there is something else outside of academia, this depressing track, having curiosity, seeing the possibilities. And then you mentioned a little bit about the actual track that happened. So maybe you can talk early, like during the early days when you were first starting your job search, like what's the first thing that you did that made a difference, right? We talk a lot about what not to do, like don't upload resumes and whatever, but what really made the difference to finding what was a good fit for you and then to getting into that role, if you can remember any kind of aha moments?
Yes. So, when I initially started the job search, I was like many other friends of mine, I was applying to, because I could only relate to industry scientific jobs. I was actually applying, and my background was neuroscience. So I kept on applying Sanofi, Biogen for research scientist positions, and I didn't hear. And I was like, and my resume, even though it was a neuroscience, was not very strong. So I was always thinking that, oh, whether this is the right thing where, I should apply or not, though I really like to, work in neuroscience field. And after doing, and at that same time, somebody introduced me to patent agent. So at one point of time, the mistake which I was doing was that I was also thinking about patent and tech transfer job as well as research scientist job. And then somebody said that, each and every job is a full-time thing, and you have to decide which one you want to do. And that was kind of that, moment I said that, no, I have to decide one thing, focus on one.
You have to prioritize. No, and I think, let me just jump in for those of you listening, because I want to recap the takeaways. I love, what Ananda said here, and this is what most of us think, especially if you're doing anything at a bench. You think, I have to stay at the bench. You just look at that one path. And so you started seeing more opportunities, and then you started pursuing multiple things, but then eventually you narrowed it down to your highest priority, what was the best fit, right? Which turned out to be things in tech transfer, intellectual property, patents, etc. Well, exactly. Can I ask you, while you're on it, what pulled you in that direction? What made you think like that was what you wanted to do?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So, I had a little bit of luck, and that luck was that when somebody said that, oh, if you are interested in patent IP career, there is something called as tech transfer internship, which universities offer. Do you know about it? I said, no. Then somebody said, do you know that there are tech transfer offices at university? I said, no. And so, that was my level of awareness, right?
Yes.
When these offices are actually doing all the MTAs, which we are dealing, most of the PhDs and postdocs are dealing, monthly basis. And so I got that break actually pretty luckily. A faculty member in my department actually introduced me to the tech transfer office director, and that's how that worked. And so I got very lucky. But here I wanted to, I always tell to others that, apart from luck, the other thing which worked was I was very active in departmental seminars. So I made sure that, I was very, and that was my intra-departmental networking time. Basically, if there are speakers, if there are you contributing to the discussion? So the faculties, even though it was not your own PI, but the other faculties, knew that I was an active person. So when, and one of them got interested in my career. So they asked me, what are you doing? How many years are you studying? So I said that, look, I'm interested in tech transfer, but nobody is replying from the Cornell tech transfer office. And it's very difficult because, they are swamped by this, I want to do internship emails. So they just don't know how to pick. So then, this faculty just called up and said that, hey, there is a guy I know who might be a good fit. And but that was a nice push. And it was not that just that phone call helped. There was an interview later on. And that's how I got that opportunity. So coming back to your question, while I was doing the internship, I was actually, meeting, I was interacting with the director, with other tech transfer officers. And then I realized that, they are more or less like me. They have the similar kind of, thinking, the sense of humor, and that lifestyle and the job description I really started liking. And so that made me like, this looks like to be something which I would like to do.
Yeah. Okay. And that makes sense in terms of what pulled you. I guess, can you talk a little bit about what the process is? Because sometimes we think of tech transfer and we think, well, isn't this an academic job? It's different, but how about the hiring process? What did that look like all the way down to your resume, the interviewing? Was there phone screens? Was there a site visit?
Okay. Yeah. So the academic tech transfer in United States, or I think, if I say United States or probably in Europe, or Canada, I think one of the most important thing in tech transfer, two most important thing in tech transfer is, one is networking. For sure. You've got to network with the tech transfer office, not only of your university, but in places like New York or Boston, where you have, several universities, you need to go out and start reaching out, do information interviews, try and, talk to them. That is a very, very important aspect of tech transfer. The other thing is, the tech transfer offices have a parent body, which is called as AUTM, AUTM. And that's a great networking platform. So there are opportunities for volunteering. The AUTM has yearly conferences, which I strongly suggest that people should go. But it's pretty expensive, and I feel.
What are those conferences called? They're just unique, depending on the
AUTM annual conference, AUTM annual conferences.
AUTM.
Yes, and they have also regional conferences which are less expensive. And the annual conference can get expensive, especially from the perspective of PhD from postdoc point of view. But if you are really, really, one thing I've realized that the transition is expensive process. So it's better to, if you are really serious, I mean, a little bit of investment is not bad. And so I strongly, because I've been to such conferences, and I have seen that grad students and postdocs, they do get to do a lot of networking by coming to those events and initiating a relationship with the tech transfer professionals. Right. So I forgot your question.
The process was, networking was huge. You did that. Okay. So is that how you made a connection at the tech transfer? Was through a referral with the network? Did you do an informational interview? What did it look like?
I did information. So when I started doing the internship, my mentor, at Cornell Tech Transfer said that one thing you need to do is go out and talk. You can't be shy. You just have to talk. So I started, talking to New York-based tech transfer offices, reached out to directors, and many people replied. I would go and introduce myself. And the other thing which I was doing was, in New York, there were a lot of events which were happening. So I would go and show up in each and every event. And so that's how it happened. And then the application, when the the job applications started coming in, those referrals actually helped. Sometimes, the mentors would say that, hey, I have a mentee and he might be a good fit. Why don't you check it out? Not that those interviews worked, but you're getting the foot in the door.
And so then you went on from the informational interview, and what did the actual interviewing process look like? Was there a phone screen? Was there a long site visit? Can you walk us through that?
Yes, sure. The first step is, of course, you have to submit your resume and the cover letter. I worked on my resume based on advices from cheeky scientists, from other friends. The other thing which I did was I had few people whom I would go back and forth with the resume to make sure that whether the resume is getting better and better. And it's an evolutionary process, so it evolved over time. The first resume I don't think was good enough, and so once the resume gets accepted, there was a phone screen, mostly from the HR, which was typical HR. Why you are interested. Sometimes those interviews are not that fun. Like it was like typical HR interviews. Once you clear that step, and in most cases you are clearing that HR step, then in some universities they do a phone interview with the hiring manager. Sometimes they did Skype with the hiring manager, and then they would call for a full day-long interview on site. So that was the process.
Okay, so the full site interview. So it's very similar to what we hear usually for internship jobs, right?
Yes.
And then so you got hired. One thing we want to talk about more and more is what the onboarding process looks like. So great, you got hired, you celebrate, right? And then it's on to getting trained in this. And do you feel like you were prepared before? Or do you feel like you did a lot of training on the job?
So internship helps, I was a little bit prepared, but you cannot be fully prepared in any internship or, before the job. So most of the things some of the subtleties of the job, you will learn on the job. And I don't think that, PhDs will have a lot of difficulty in learning on the job, as long as as you have been saying, that if you use your intellect, if you are using creativity, if you are forthcoming, then you get to learn some of those intricacies, and that takes time. It's not that within 6 months you will learn everything about tech transfer or any other field, because there is a lot of behind the back rules, and that will take time. You can learn, but yeah, so a lot of things you learn on the job. And internship helps to give you a perspective of, okay, I have heard about this, I have seen that process happening, so I'm familiarized, but the other intricacies you have to learn in the job.
And then so you have the job, and then what did some of that onboarding look like? So the internship obviously helped. It's something that it's a little bit different, where you can do it with the proximity to academia. So I think it's a kind of a rare internship that might be beneficial, as long as you can do it while you're in academia still.
Yeah.
What did you need to learn? What are some of the key, insights you got, the key training you got on the job during the onboarding process, like during the first 3 to 6 months, especially?
So tech transfer is mostly, it has three components. The first component is the relationship building, which is you are doing internally with the university faculties, and the other is external partnerships, which are the companies, which are the business development groups, the VCs, and so it's a lot about building and nurturing this relationship. That is one thing. The other thing is to try and understand that what exactly contracts are, and either it's a licensing agreement, contracts and agreements, either it's an MTA or it's an interinstitutional agreement. So different kinds of understanding, knowledge of what agreements are, what how why they are important, and what are the critical things in agreement which should be taken care of when you are representing the university. Yes, and these are some of the things I think in tech transfer. The marketing, and marketing again is based on your relationship with the external partners, and that's like writing an abstract, how to become, how you can be more imaginative in creating that abstract, which I think most PhDs know. How you design your PowerPoint slides. It's like a lot of those things. So that's.
Well, let's talk about, let's go from like what an average day looks like, or a week, in terms of your daily activities, even down to like emails, meetings, the different groups and departments you interact with. And then I want to zero in on the different interactions, but maybe just take us through like the day-to-day life of
right. A lot of emails, most of the a lot of emails. The emails are either within the office, or they're coming from the faculties, or they're coming from the patent offices. Like, okay, these are some of the patents which are getting published, and so answering those emails are, the part of the, your part of your day-to-day work. And there are deadlines, so you have to be very careful about the deadlines, that you don't miss any deadlines, and you are kind of, going through, as you are going through the emails, you have to prioritize. So my day goes like prioritizing which emails I should reply right now, and which emails I should work and get back to. A part of my day goes in reading, literatures or patents, and writing about marketing briefs. A lot of the time I design, I'm responsible for internal outreach within NYU, so I kind of think about events which I can do at NYU. So connecting, trying to contact external partners or faculties in other universities, and trying to create events, monthly basis, so that the NYU Industrial Liaison Office is at the forefront within the NYU community. And of course the internal meetings. So this is basically my job, at my role.
Yes.
As I grow, the jobs and the responsibilities increases, and there are different that we can talk later on. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to talk about career trajectory. So what you say makes sense. I really want to kind of zero in on the cross-functional relationships, like the departments and the people you interact with, right? So you mentioned marketing, you mentioned the people, the innovators, right? So maybe you can take us through those different sectors of people: the business side, the innovation side, the regulation side, the marketing side, and whatever else.
So in tech transfer, mostly, the first thing is, like, when the innovators or the faculties, discover something. Let's say they discover a technology in CRISPR, let's say, and they think that, oh, this looks like a cool technology. The first thing they do is they will disclose it to the university, because they're bound to by their agreement. And so that disclosure comes to the tech transfer office, and they say that, oh, it looks like this is a new technology in gene disruption. Let's take a look at it. And so that's the first step in tech transfer office. And then they decide that whether, we will go ahead. Is there a commercial value to this kind of this for this kind of technology? So they do a marketing analysis of, what industry, what are the sectors, what is the growth projections in that sector, and all that. And then there is the other thing which they decide is that whether this is a novel technology, or somebody already has patented or published in this particular field, which we call as prior art search. And that's a very common term in tech transfer and IP world. So once you do that, and once everything looks very good, the market looks very good, and there are no prior arts, looks like very novel, then we decide that, hey, I think we should go ahead and patent it. And at that point of time, you are then interacting with the patent law offices, either internal or external. Most of the tech transfer offices have external law offices they're associated with. So, they draft the patent. And so that's the other level of conversation which is happening with the patent office, or the attorneys, or the patent agent who are involved drafting the patent. So at that time, the patent office is talking to the tech transfer office as well as the innovators. When that process is done, then comes the marketing, where once you have filed the provisional, which is the first patent, there is what you do is then you start reaching out to external partners and say that, hey, it looks like I have a great technology which can edit genes, seamlessly. Looks very cool. Okay, do you want to, take a look at it? And so then if the external partners like Editas says that, hey, looks like this great, let me, tell me something about the technology. And then what we do is we liaison between the innovators and the external partners, and they get into a discussion where they try to understand what the technology is, try to understand the science behind it. And if they're satisfied, then the next step is then they will negotiate. And that's the most critical part of tech transfer office, which, I am not yet exposed to that particular process. It's a little bit of more advanced, where you are negotiating, a lot of different things, and that is depending on royalty, the fee structure, how the technology should be used according to university rules or other Bayh-Dole Act rules, and there are different regulations. And so that's a major chunk of the the more serious aspect of tech transfer is negotiation. And if the deal goes through, then that technology gets licensed to these companies.
And can you talk a little bit more about your role in the negotiation process?
So right now, I'm too early at the tech transfer field, so I haven't entered into hardcore negotiations. So the idea is I'm working on a couple of projects. When those projects gets matured, then I will be involved with those kind of negotiations. Yeah, we
And
can have this discussion in another couple of years. I will probably be able.
yeah, no, but I mean, so you've seen the negotiations takes place, and I'm sure you've learned a lot about the negotiation process.
Yes, during internships and during a little bit in the at NYU, but most of the negotiation process are there are certain aspects which universities hold very dearly, based on their universities' policies. So the part of negotiation deals with those, that how the technology should be used, that technology should universities can use that technology at their will, for academic purposes. Then the other thing is royalty structure, like what, how you are deciding on how much, what's the value of the technology, and that's, I think, very critical. So the who are very good with these kind of assessing the value of technology, they are pretty good with negotiation skills and all that, apart from other negotiation skills, of course.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure with your experience now, you've picked up some negotiation insights, or maybe you can just talk to us about what you know about the process. What exactly, you mentioned a little bit, what exactly is being negotiated? Who are the people trying to come together on a deal? How does it work? Maybe you can dig in a little bit there.
So at the top of my, I because there's from my experience, there is a contract agreement, and so all the negotiations happens based on those agreements. And the agreements is the university has certain things which they need, the company have certain things which they need, and that's where the negotiations happen. And the most important aspect of negotiation, believe me, is the money. Right? They're talking about that's
Sure, the numbers. Yeah.
the numbers, yeah, and then how they are negotiating. But frankly speaking, I have not been involved into very high negotiation meetings so far. Yeah.
No, that's good. So, I mean, it's a critical skill, right? And we've heard this from other job and career
Yes.
paths, like deal making, however you want to describe it, collaborating, even, I guess some people say, but the negotiation process is crucial.
Yes, and in tech transfer, if you have to be successful, you have to be very good with, you have to get these deals done. That's what they say. So every tech transfer officers, or the managers, they will have certain number of deals they need to do every year.
Yes. It's similar to whether it's a VC firm or whatever, most companies, a certain number of deals have to happen every year.
Exactly.
To keep running. And so, okay, so why don't you take us up the ladder of people that you work with? We've talked a little bit about laterally, like the different groups, marketing and regulation, the university, the people that have the innovations. What about vertically? So where do you go from here, right? So,
right.
What's
So
the career trajectory look like?
One of the things I want to tell is that when I was trying to break into tech transfer, the tech transfer positions are very limited. It's not like there are a lot of positions happening, and it's a cyclical, and especially in universities, highly competitive universities, people get very, very comfortable, and and people tend to stay in tech transfer for a long, long time. So I have myself, I've heard in New York what happens is it's a cyclical. The hiring process is cyclical. So there are years when a lot of universities are hiring, but then there are years there's no hiring at all. So one of the challenges with people who are trying to enter tech transfer is to deal with this, that it's an extremely less number of positions and it's extremely competitive. And so at that point of time, any kind of entry-level job was something, to get the foot in, was what I was looking for. And then, so there was this position called marketing associate in NYU, which I thought was perfect. And that's how I entered, that's how I got the job.
This takes us to the end of this Cheeky Scientist radio podcast episode that you have been listening to. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please go to iTunes and leave a review and let us know what you would like to hear more of. If you're interested in transitioning into industry, go to phdsgethired.com and enter your name and email address, and we will give you information about our PhD job search blueprint, specifically for PhDs who want to transition into industry, as well as our PhD only 4,000 plus member private job referral network. Again, go to phdsgethired.com and enter your name and email address now. As always, remember your value as a PhD and start thinking and acting like a successful industry professional.